Hope you're all doing good. Today we are gonna do some more scary stories, but we are gonna do some Let's Not Meet stories. I have missed doing the Let's Not Meet stories. I wasn't I can't speak today. I wasn't able to do them for a while because there is a new law in the UK, I think it might be in Europe in general, where if something is deemed not safe for work, whether it's, because it's scary or whether it's because it's raunchy or, you have to verify your age. And previously it wasn't letting me use my provisional license as a form of ID. So I couldn't get in, but it's now let me. So I'm back in. Yeah. As always, the links to all these stories are gonna be in the comments. And just before we get started, really quickly, it has become a bit of an intro spiel. I do have channel memberships open if you want more content from me. It is 99p per month for one extra video a week on Mondays. Custom emojis, custom badges, that sort of thing. I do offer custom videos on Fiverr, and I've recently opened a Buy Me a Coffee account where I can also do custom videos there. I opened that because I can put the prices lower than on Fiverr because they take less of a cut than Fiverr does. So if you're interested in a video, you can, get in touch there. Also, if you want a custom video, you see the prices, they're a bit too high, that's fine. I offer discounts all the time. So still get in touch, I'm happy to give you guys a discount. But yeah, I'm also on a new platform called Lushify. It's a new platform just for ASMR. All of my content on there is free and will remain free. But it will be exclusive, so it won't be cross-posted onto YouTube or anything like that. So sorry for the background noise. But yeah, if you want to check Lushify out, you can click the link in the description, or I have made a community tab post about it. Yeah, it's very early alpha right now, so not all the features are implemented. Okay, so let's just get into the stories now. This first one is by Fibonacci Linguini. It's titled, "He Followed Me Through My Own Apartment Complex at Night." I live in a managed complex that has two buildings. The main one with the lobby, mailroom, amenities, etc. And the secondary one, which I currently live in. On Sunday night, I had a DoorDash delivery dropped off. I always tell them they can drop off my orders at the secondary entrance in my building, so that I don't have to cross over to the main building, but I don't think they ever read the note. No worries. I read the notification from DoorDash. I saw it got delivered to the lobby in the main building around 11 PM. I made my way over and I noticed that the dasher even left a note saying there was a suspicious man in the lobby and that he was worried he might take my food. I figured he said this because he was waiting until I got there. When I came down, there was a guy sitting there on his phone but carefully watching my food. He saw me approaching and said, "You're here," to which I responded, "Thanks for waiting." Must be the DoorDasher. I picked up my order and started to turn around, and he also got up. Except he started heading in the direction of the elevators, not the exit. He starts chatting. "I actually live in this building. My name is, and I live in building number. What's your name?" I gave him a fake name and cut the conversation short, the pieces coming together this wasn't the DoorDasher. It was a suspicious man pretending to be the DoorDasher who had even waited for me to come down as though he made the delivery. To get back to my building, the secondary one, you can either use the elevators in the main building to the 4th floor and transfer to the secondary building, or you can cut across the garage in the main building to the second building. I noticed the key fob in his hand and waited for him to click the elevator and step inside. When I gathered he was taking the elevator and knew I definitely didn't want to share an elevator with him so that he would know where I lived, I decided I would take the shortcut through the garage. There's a straight line and maybe a 2-minute walk to the other side. After he stepped in the elevator, I walked through both sets of doors and into the garage. My senses heightened. Halfway through, I decided to look behind me to verify I was alone, only to see his body in the doorway. He hadn't taken the elevator, he was following me. I booked it, heart racing, through the garage doors. I started jamming the elevator buttons, hoping it would come quickly, but I could hear the elevator car was still on its way down. In a split second, I tried to think if I would be strong enough to hold down the door with the weight of my body if it came pushing through. But that would mean we would be stuck in this area in the garage with probably little to no cameras, witnesses, or any cell service. I was running out of time. I eyed the stairwell and, carrying my food, booked it 2 steps at a time over 2 floors. I was now on the 4th floor, which is normally the floor you would transfer on to get to the other building. Although I was now in the secondary building, my building, I was worried if he indeed was still following me, he'd know which building I lived in. I needed to go back to the main building. If he was still behind me, I would know for sure he was following me, because we just did a circle. From the corner of my eye in the distance, I could see someone taking out the trash from the reflection of the door. At 11 p.m, this was the first person I'd seen, and I needed to be next to anyone. I cut through the courtyard, through the conservatory, and into the hallway on the 4th floor in the main building. Just as I stopped to catch my breath, he bursted through the conservatory doors and caught up to me, huffing and puffing. He accused me of stealing the DoorDash, yelling, got in my face and told me I could be evicted and sent to prison. I couldn't look him in the eyes for longer than 3 seconds, but he looked bewildered. At this point, the person taking out their trash to the chute was nowhere to be seen, and this man kept coming closer, me backing up, him inching closer. I tried talking loudly, hoping if anything would happen, the residents in the unit behind me could hear. He continued to raise his voice, claiming that the 119 number on the receipt stapled outside the bag was the real person's apartment number, and that I had stolen it from them. Taking a look, 119 was in fact the order number, not the apartment number, but he was convinced it was someone's apartment unit number. For a lot of reasons, this logic didn't make sense, but this implied, not that I needed to explain it to him, but I could have been trying to go from main building, second building, 4th floor, main building, second floor, to lose him, so that we didn't have to share the elevator and he'd know where I lived. Even if I was taking someone else's order, I wasn't. He was going to follow me to my apartment to verify where I lived, which is scary, and ensure my apartment matched the number he assumed was the apartment number on the back. He was able to catch up to me relatively quickly, considering I was sprinting and out of breath. This means he was deliberately following or chasing me down, which as a man, circumstances aside, but I especially for the ration of stolen food. I'm not sure why you would ever willingly chase a woman by herself at night, knowing how this would look for him. You were studying my order/receipt because you had to be in close proximity to the receipt to see that the fading ink read 119. It was never about the order, because why did he pretend to go on the elevator in the beginning, only to chase me across 2 buildings for an order he didn't even know what apartment number I was going into? And it definitely dawned on him that up until that point we were the only people around. As I was standing there, him inching near me and booking the receipt, I thought I heard someone coming down through the hallway in the distance. He clicked the elevator button, continuing his threats, and I didn't even wait for him to finish getting in the elevator. I sprinted through the conservatory, through the courtyard, and back to my building, taking the elevator up to my floor. I got to my apartment, paralyzed and shaking from what I thought was the end of that night. I was so terrified that my breathing got laboured and raspy. I don't even have asthma, but I could barely catch my breath for minutes, grasping onto anything I could so that I could feel grounded and not choke from the lack of air. I'll never forget the moment I looked back in that garage and saw his body in the doorframe. I wrote a long, detailed email to my management with screenshots from the door dash and exact accounts and locations of where everything happened, so that they could corroborate my account with their camera footage. It's now been 4 days and I'm awoken every morning by my heart racing, heart flushes, and paranoia with every drop of a sound. This is a new kind of anxiety I've never felt before. My eyes are clouded with fear, with the fear of bumping into him in common spaces. How to plan my days with the highest likelihood of avoiding him, and how to strategically order and pick up my mail where I know I won't have to see him. I don't know if these extreme symptoms, especially the heart racing, are normal after this experience, considering I know a lot of women have had more frightening and violent encounters with strangers that involve more than what happened to me that night. But this has been consuming me for the past few days. I feel unsafe in my own building. Let's not meet ever. I think the OP needs to cut themselves some slack, especially with the whole the thing of like, oh, other women have had scarier or more violent interactions. That doesn't make what happened to you not scary and not worth the reaction that you've had. Like, that is terrifying. You were chased down. You didn't know what was gonna happen. You didn't know if he was gonna turn violent. Like, anything could have happened. And if you are someone who reads horror stories or reads like true crime, your mind would have been, or could have been, spiraling at that moment, and kind of like all the terrible things that could happen and like how to get out of the situation. It's very frightening. It's very, very, very frightening and very upsetting and very draining. Like, it's exhausting because she's gonna live with that fear for a long time now. So it's not even just like, oh, it was scary and now it's over. It's gonna have longer lasting effects. Stuff like that always does. But yeah, that's terrifying. I would hate that. Anyone would hate that, of course. It is terrifying. But there is an update, so let's read the update. Edit everything that has happened since. The next morning, my management and maintenance, 2 men, came knocking on my door. Of course, I was already frazzled from the events of the night before, and although I opened the door, they could see I was visibly shaking. They came to apologize about the event, saying they had seen the footage and it was scary. I needed to file a police report immediately. The property manager was kind, saying was the fourth or fifth female that he has harassed. He has harassed women in the complex before, but never followed them at night. The property manager has managed multiple properties before, but he has never seen a resident following another resident like this before. He usually finds a woman by herself and kind of hones in on them. He does not approach men, and he doesn't approach women when they are with men. The people who live on his floor have complained numerous times that he harasses them, making it bothersome for them. He's been arrested before for harassing a woman. He's been sent to the hospital before for his mental health issues. He was most recently booked and released 2 weeks ago, and management wasn't aware he was back. Oh, this is a really big update, okay. The responder on the other line noted this was quite severe, so they sent an officer on the scene to collect an official report. By this point, as we were talking, I learned the resident's full name, birthday, unit number that he lives in, when he moved in. It's been less than half a year, so assuming he has a 12-month lease, he still has a ways to go. The officer asked if I could remember if he had a tool or a weapon in his hands, but I said I couldn't remember. Not that I knew. I said that there was camera footage, so we could check and see if he did. But the officer said that even if I couldn't remember, and it turns out the perpetrator did in fact have a weapon, I cannot go back on my word and say there was a weapon / I felt threatened. I was stunned. I told the officer, but there's evidence of him following me, a woman alone, as well as threatening me across 2 buildings, one of which he had no business being in at 11 p.m. at night. The officer asked if he used the words, "I will kill you" or "I will shoot you." I said no, but he was still threatening me. The officer said, "Unfortunately, that qualifies as being a nuisance, but being a nuisance isn't against the law or grounds for arrest." My heart dropped. On top of that, my property manager said they've been trying to evict him, but there isn't enough evidence, and eviction is a long process. There was nothing they could do. The officer gave me his card with my case number, informing me that I should call him if he ever approached me again or if I felt unsafe. There is more, but I'm just gonna chime in and say that is crazy. Just because, even if she knew he didn't have a weapon, that doesn't make it less scary. She still felt unsafe, she still felt threatened, and he was still clearly, after her. That's terrifying. I hate that, so many countries, I think including my own actually, have laws where it's oh well, technically they haven't done anything wrong, when it's they clearly have bad intentions. Why is it the case of oh, nothing can be done until someone's been seriously hurt or killed? Why shouldn't prevention be the better way? I don't know. I went back to my apartment, stunned and trying to figure out next steps. I decided not to leave my apartment again out of safety, but ordered additional self-defense items, including an apartment doorbell camera. Because he had been up close to my receipt bag to know my order number, the receipt also had my name. cases since 2018, and the most recent court record was from August 2024. His cases have been for stalking, harassment, restraining orders, multiple reissued anti-harassment protection orders, domestic violence, and attempting to get him to surrender his firearms, to which he has refused, so he still owns his guns. Different women have attempted to serve him protection orders multiple times, but failed either because he's tried to dodge it, never showed up to court, or he's been hard to get a hold of. I couldn't believe it. This man was able to freely move about common spaces in our complex, and management has never mentioned anything to residents nor regarded our safety. Now I knew I was dealing with a man with unresolved mental health issues. Oh, sorry, no. I keep skipping lines today, I'm so sorry, guys. Now I knew this was more than just an annoying neighbor, but someone who could be dangerous. I was dealing with a man with unresolved mental health issues, who may still be in possession of multiple firearms, who is angry with me. Given his history of professional stalking, I was worried if he saw me too soon again, he would remember our encounter and fixate on me, and possibly it would escalate. A few days passed and I hadn't left my building, but I noted that my camera had arrived, so I was trying to arrange for how I could get to the mail room, which is in the building he lives in and the floor he's on. I asked management for footage of our encounter, and after 2 days of tracking on the request, it seemed like they were trying to buy time. They finally sent me clips of our encounters in different areas. In one of the videos you could see he had followed me into the garage a bit after I had already gone in, after he had supposedly pretended to take the elevator. In that clip, that freaks me out the most. You could see me enter the garage elevator lobby, click the elevator button, frantically pace back and forth, and try leaning my body against the door before I realise I'm running out of time and run through the stairwell. A few moments later you see him come in, look at the pressed elevator button, but no one took it. Then deduce I must have taken the stairwell before following suit. If anything, this showed intent. Oddly enough, the footage when he got up to me and poked the receipt on my back was missing, but management sent the footage after when I ran back to my building. Anyway, a few days later, around 6 p.m, I was figuring out how to pick up my mail. I have a married friend who lives in the building 3 floors above, and had no idea about any of this. So I asked if she would be comfortable meeting me on the 4th floor of her building, where the encounter took place, but where I have to pass in order to go to the mail room in the main lobby. Deep breaths. I got to the end of my hallway, with my friend on the phone the whole time, and opened the door to the courtyard. I vigilantly. I looked across to the conservatory and saw a man there. I squinted. It couldn't be. It was indeed him, standing in the conservatory. He locked eyes with me, started mouthing things, smiling and then yelling. I began shaking, uncontrollably crying, and quickly ran back to my building. Now he knew for sure I lived in the second building. My friend was in the hallway behind him, so she witnessed everything as he was yelling, and it was directed at me. She wasn't with her husband either, but he had locked eyes with me and was angry now. There were some people in the hallway frantically asking if I was okay, but I couldn't speak. My friend, still on the line, told me to go back to my apartment and that she would meet me there with her husband. My friend and her husband came up a few moments later, staying with me as I frantically packed a go bag. We decided it wasn't safe for me to be alone in my apartment, so I reached out to another friend who lives elsewhere in the city and said I could crash at her place. As I write this edit, I am in the living room of her apartment for the third day figuring out my next moves. On my first day at my friend's house, I wrote management an email again explaining the incident with the resident again. This is my second day and no response from them still. My friend went to management with her husband to report the incident since she also witnessed him yelling, so it could add to their complaints. She said management was aware of me and my complaints, but they cannot do anything because he is protected under the Fair Housing Act. Management cannot deny housing to someone due to their disability, which includes mental illness. For context, most buildings in my city have MFTE units, basically reduced rent apartments that are reserved as part of an affordable housing program in my city. From what I understand, people can qualify for MFTE housing based on income, and sometimes it's combined with disability protections, which is likely how he's able to stay here. So it seems my unit is worried if they evict him, he might be able to sue for discriminatory eviction. I don't have a male partner, which seems to be the only deterrent from the resident, so my sister and her husband are trying to figure out when they can fly in and help me pack my place so I can get out of here. I'm devastated because it's a beautiful complex with incredible amenities, gorgeous interior, and pretty new, but all this means nothing when my safety is at risk. I have no plans, but I cannot go back to my unit until I have protection at all times in that building. God, that is... Well, first of all, it's absolutely terrifying, and secondly, it's just absolutely ridiculous and just so unfair that nothing can be done because of, like, I understand mental health and stuff like that, but his mental health is clearly, like, bad to the point where he's been in and out of, like, institutions, and, like, he's openly harassing people. He's had so many complaints and, like, police reports. That's not okay. He needs to be somewhere he can't hurt or harass people. Okay, this next one is pretty short. It's by Narwhal Wonderful 3533. It is titled, "You Pulled a Knife on Our First Double Date." When I was about 23, my friend Emily was using Tinder and matched with a guy. She sent him a photo of me and he told her his friend was interested. Before I knew it, we were planning a double date. Their idea of a first hangout, a hike, that's really scary as a first date. I wouldn't go anywhere isolated with someone I don't know like that. That's scary. I know. The guys picked us up and drove us to a desert-like trail where you could see the city and neighborhoods from far off. I already felt a little uneasy, but I hadn't promised anything. I was just along for the ride. We started climbing higher up the trail. At some point, Emily and her date walked ahead, turned a corner and disappeared down the hill. That left me alone with him. The second they were out of sight, I felt his arm wrap around me. Something pressed against my neck. I looked down and I realized it was a pocket knife. I let out a nervous laugh, probably pure shock, and he actually grinned and said, "You laughed, you're my kind of girl." Then he slipped the knife back into his pocket and kept his arm around me like nothing happened. I tried to move forward quickly and get through the rest of the hike. Afterward, they brought us back to his family's house. Apparently they were really wealthy. I left my sweatshirt there by accident. Later, he sent a picture of it to Emily saying I'd terrifying. I would not go back either. Fuck the sweatshirt. That guy sounds like a psycho. Like, there's no instance where that would be funny either, so he can't even like be like, oh, it was a joke, because like, in what world is that funny? It's just not. Okay, this is gonna be the last one for the night. This is by Conscious Dash Drawer 8204. Ow. Okay, sorry. He followed me in a van, then wrote about me on Craigslist. Okay. So, I was telling a co-worker this story and she suggested I share it here. Sorry in advance if I ramble. I tend to remember random details every time I tell it. Back when I was about 17, around 2009, I worked as a courtesy clerk at a grocery store, packing groceries and bringing in cards. My mum and sister also worked there, so the place felt like family. Most of the guys I worked with there were protective of me, which honestly was a blessing, because I got hit on by older men all of the time. My boss would even follow me home some nights, just to make sure no creeps were trailing me. That's really nice. One incident, though, has stuck with me. It was an insanely hot day. I just finished wrangling a mountain of cards and ducked into the little pizzeria corner of the store to cool down. Out of nowhere, this man in his 20s or 30s came up and handed me his number. He didn't say much, if anything, and just walked off. I was too overheated to react. The next day, a silver minivan pulled up to me outside. I noticed baby shoes hanging from the rearview mirror. What the fuck? Baby shoes, that's weird. The man tried talking to me, and I remember cutting him off and saying, I'm 17 and I have a boyfriend. Usually that scared men away, but this one didn't. That night, near closing time, my cashier whispered that someone was watching us. I turned and saw the same guy from the minivan standing around the corner just staring. I told my night manager, who immediately opened the office door while counting tills to keep an eye on things. The guy eventually left the store but waited outside. My manager ended up following me home again that night. A few days later, my aunt randomly texted me, which was unusual. We hardly talked. She sent me a link to a Craigslist missed connections post and asked if it was about me. It was. The post said something like, saw you working at the grocery store, you were cute, you wore a bow in your hair, suspenders hanging from your shorts, a bunch of wristbands and had bright coloured hair. Your name tag said Garrett. I'm 40 and would like to meet up. The Garrett part really freaked me out, because Garrett wasn't me. My co-workers and I used to switch name tags sometimes just to mess with customers and see their reactions. So not only was this guy watching me closely enough to describe my entire outfit, but he also memorized the fake name I just happened to. So not only was this guy watching me closely enough to describe my entire outfit, but he also memorized the fake name I just happened to be wearing that day. I ran to my manager and showed him the post. He immediately replied to it with, too young for you, parent. After that, things got weirder. I'd see the same silver van around, but sometimes I wasn't sure if it was even the same guy. Once I rushed inside after spotting it, and suddenly the man was already following me down an aisle. There was no way he could have parked that fast anyone else saw him. The police got involved and gave me an escort home every night for a week. Eventually, I transferred to another store in a different town. I never saw the van or that man again. Being hit on by creepy older men unfortunately never stopped, but that Craigslist post still gives me chills to this day. I wish I could find it again. It was so unsettling reading how he described me. So to the man who wrote that Craigslist post about a 17-year-old girl, let's not meet. So there's an update in the comments. Not too long after this happened, the cops busted a sex trafficking ring in my area and arrested around 40 people. When I saw that in the news, it made my stomach drop. I'll never know if the guy that night was connected, but it honestly feels like he could have been. Thinking back on how he looked at me, the way he lingered, and how off everything felt, I still get chills. That's really bad, and I think that there is a huge possibility that he was, especially considering the time where he was already inside the store, following you, and he wouldn't have had time to park the van, and you weren't sure that it was always him driving the same van. I feel like he was a part of that, and that's really bad. That's genuinely terrifying. Wow. That's so scary. I'm glad that you had people around you that took you seriously though, like your manager and stuff.